Okay, this video is for the photographers, but as you'll see, a lot of the principles can probably apply to lots of different businesses or lots of different industries or even different types of services. The theory and the thought processes are very similar. So in this example, an American husband and wife couple approached me through the website um, with a very common problem that they've been running for a long time. So, photography business, been operating for about 20 years. Um, not really interested in changing their website. Not really getting a good flow of leads. They shared that their price point's higher than their competitors because they include a lot of things that maybe others charge for, like post production, which is like the editing and usage rights and things like that. So straight away, thought process is wonder why they're not getting leads. So I obviously asked a few more questions because we're going to have a discovery call. But very quickly, when I looked at their website, I could see why they weren't getting a flow. So their site's been running for about 10 years. They have done some marketing before. They've done individual outreach. And so what that means is they probably approach businesses directly or event organizers and stuff to try and be hired as photographers. They had used an online marketing company before but didn't get any results. And I'll show you the website in a second, and you can see why. To be honest, I wouldn't have run ads. Doesn't matter if I was getting paid to do it or not. I wouldn't have done it. Um, they had done some Google advertising but no results. In other words, they'd used the company to do it and they tried it themselves. Neither of it worked. Again, I'll show why in a second. They're based in Florida, which is obviously an area of the United States, but they also mention they want to get found in lots of different areas. So that presents a challenge in itself. And then they already had received a proposal from a local marketing company in the US, but weren't prepared to um, pay the quote or the fee, um, but also not interested in rebuilding the site, which is one of the recommendations. But I'm going to walk through how and why they probably really need to take a step back and have a real think about what they're doing because, well, not so much what they're doing, but the thought process because the world's changed from 10 years ago and things are much more competitive. And why do I know all of this stuff or why do I have any sort of opinion? Well, apart from being a marketing consultant, I actually created my own photography business back in 2016 when I left full time employment. So I used it as a way to create some extra income, and it was also a way for me to put in practice, obviously, some of the things that I had been doing in my career. So, reviewing or analyzing or auditing a photographer website, I wear two hats. I wear the one that understands the marketing, and also wear the one that used to be a business owner and faced a lot of the same challenges. And so, first step is try to find the company. And in this instance, it's actually difficult to really understand who they are. And what I mean by that is this is the company here in the very first result. You expect that. I've typed in their name. That should be the case. But then there's these other ones that have similar names that are not them. And that could be a little bit confusing for some customers. What really ideally you want to see here is a lot of different online profiles or, maybe photos of theirs that have been featured on different websites and whatnot. But the most important thing that's missing here is a Google My Business profile. And for whatever reason, it doesn't show up. Now, I haven't done a complete audit for them. We haven't gone through any consulting, so I don't know if they've got one. But if you look for the business, you should normally see it. And you might be thinking, well, why does it matter? Well, A, you can then see the profile's legitimate or the business is legitimate. It's kind of a way of telling that. Secondly, you can see if they've got a lot of reviews, for argument's sake. Some people will actually go look for those reviews, either on social media or on Google, to match up to what they see on the site, especially with photographers. So in other words, you might take amazing photos, but maybe some of the reviews talk about, the photographer being hard to work with or things like that. That could be the things people look for. So in their case, they don't have it. The other big aspect is if they don't have one, it limits their ability to get found with local search. Now, local search is search that's getting done in the area that they're in, where they might be located, either their office or if they have a showroom or something like that. So straight away, this is one of the reasons why they're potentially not getting leads, because there's lots of different things that will contribute to whether or not they get found. So, that's the first thing to look at. One of the other things I typically go and do is then obviously go look at socials. This wasn't their profile, but I went and looked for them on LinkedIn. Their focus is on corporate events, so you'd hope to see them here, which they are, which is good. But there's not a lot of content, and so even though they've got some great photos displayed here, it's a pretty generic post. It's obviously one way. It's like it's promoting something they do for sure. But it's not explaining why you would need this type of photos or how it could be used, or taking some of those examples and then showing how the different brands used it so that there's some context. There's also, not any relevance for this post really, or context is what I'm getting at. So it's beautiful photos, but why were they made in black and white and how were they used? Because a lot of corporate companies, typically wouldn't use black and white. Most of it would be color. Another example of an event they attended, which looks good. Another example which looks good, but that's about it. So for a business that's been around for 10 years, there's not a lot of content here, and there's not a lot of variation necessarily. So obviously a couple of events. I'm assuming this is like corporate from maybe a website or something, and that's about it. And so then typically what some people might do if they're trying to find out a little bit more about the company is look at the people that work there. And in this case, one of the owners had a profile, but here it's not personal. And so, straight away we're talking about a creative industry, or a personal sort of service where you're going to be dealing with someone who is going to be putting a camera in your face, or colleagues or friends or family, whatever the case may be. So to have some sort of human connection could be a great value. There's no header image, there's no sample photos, there's no logo from the company. Everything's really brief. There is a couple of posts, but that's about it. So it's just one of those things where there's some missed opportunities to create engagement through this profile, and obviously to reach out to people on LinkedIn, which is a business network, and also to build trust. So there's a couple of elements there. If we jump to the website, I'm just going to refresh this because for a new visitor, this is what loads. And one of the biggest challenges here is normally a site needs to load within a couple of seconds. Otherwise, a lot of people will drop off. They will think it's not working or not functioning or whatever because of that really long delay. Now, the second thing that's happening here is it's directing from the home page to the portfolio page immediately. And you're thrown onto this page, which has got a lot of great photos, but my instant feeling or reaction was this is maybe a gallery from one event, and not necessarily like a sample of the breadth of work they're able to produce. And the challenge here is somebody might think it's a mistake, or maybe they're looking for a slightly different style, and they may have all these sample of photos, but you can't see it. And so it's an immediate sort of thing where people are starting to make decisions about which photographer to use. When they look at these, there's a lot of backs in photos. There's actually duplicate because that photo's over here as well. This photo, I'm not sure what it is of. An award winner good, a speaker good, somebody happy, maybe getting a demonstration good, but there's not a lot of other variation. There's no product photos, there's no booth photos, there's no corporate headshots, all the other things that they mentioned that they do. And when you click to the other parts of the site to see what else there is, it's just all little small things. So here, for example, we're forced to have to read. So we can't quickly just see the logos of all these companies they've worked with. And it's all in caps. So it's actually a lot of hard work to go through and to read this. In the About section, you can't see the people behind the business. And again, we're talking about a lot of heavy caps text. And as we see through here, they're obviously talking about a lot of stuff, but it's not necessarily demonstrated. So you're forced to have to sort of read through this. With other sites, it'll be all visually displayed and a lot easier to digest. Services, again here, it's all caps. It's no, it's just like a big block of stuff. And so within here, we can see that there's video. There's corporate headshots and different types of things that they do, but you don't necessarily see that in different parts of the website. So they're actually underselling themselves because each person that comes or visits a site is going to make a decision on what they see relatively quickly. They won't necessarily read every single bit of detail. They'll skim and probably zoom up and down the page and have a look at some of the visuals, especially in this industry. And the challenge here is it's a really text-heavy content page. It's not optimized for search. It doesn't have a lot of sentences or keywords that would necessarily make sense for search, and that's why they're not getting any traffic. Even if they did get traffic, and this comes back to my point before about should they run advertising, I'm not convinced a lot of people would be putting in inquiries or asking for quotes because it just feels very dated and there's not enough examples of visual variation to get really comfortable, especially when we look in a second at some of their competitors. Some of the other things they said they included, they're kind of all buried. So it's not like simple bullet points. There's not different package comparisons for argument's sake. So if these are real points of difference, it's kind of lost in all the all the text. And even something like this is talking about legal stuff, but here this is almost like a sales thing because this is talking about what's included in what you choose. So in the pre-work or the pre-question and information that they provided, they talked about they weren't really interested in updating their website. But there's a few challenges here. It's not appealing to me in terms of as a photographer or even as a marketer. They've got a lot of heavy competition that are visually quite impactful. And there's no optimization for search. So there's a few different things at play here that would make it challenging for them to get leads. So obviously, no surprise, they reached out saying they want help trying to change that. The other aspect to consider is mobile phone users. And I didn't reload the site in this instance. I'm just switching to the mobile view. If someone arrives at this website, that gallery has got so many photos. This is what somebody will be scrolling through on a mobile phone if they don't know to click up here, which is possible. And then you look at it on a mobile phone. Imagine trying to read this on a mobile phone. Now most people these days would be searching on a mobile phone. People are just so used to picking up their phone and looking for a photographer or looking for other services. So the other big challenge here is I think this would be a real chore to try and get through on a mobile phone. So all of these little bits and pieces contribute to whether or not you actually convert a visitor into a lead or get traffic, which is what they're asking about. And so even something as simple as a contact page, sure, phone number, email, great. But there's nothing here talks about what locations they service, what venues they've got experience with, links to their social profiles, links to the Google My Business profile to see reviews. There's none of that sort of stuff, which is what's kind of expected these days. The other benefit of having that sort of stuff on the website is it actually helps with search. So here, for example, let's say there's a major venue in Florida that they're experts in. That could be featured because there could be people looking for someone that is really good at taking photos in that particular venue. And then even things like how far they would go. So maybe somebody finds them in Los Angeles, but not sure whether they would travel there. So there's nothing here really to make it simple to understand that. Why is all this important? Well, using SEMrush, which granted is not 100% accurate, but it always gives you an idea. For this site, going back to 2012, it's saying there's no traffic whatsoever. And maybe a few years ago they ranked for a handful of keywords, but none of them were in the top 3. You can see here though, look at all the Google updates. So in other words, they've got a site that's probably remained the same for 10 years. Meanwhile, Google's changed many things, and as you can imagine, the industry has changed. There's now, photographer directories, there's companies like Snapper that will take jobs. There's just like so much more competition than there ever used to be. They could be like kids starting out that do event photography, and offer cheap rates and still can take up business. So there's just so much competition. So therefore, if you don't have some of these elements in place, you're literally invisible, which we'll see in a second. Why is all this important? Well, do people even still look for a photographer? Absolutely. In the US, for a professional photographer, so this is across, all areas combined, there's about 6,000 searches a month. But that's just professional photographer. Then there's another 10,000 variations, and that's another 80 odd thousand searches a month. So there's a truckload of people looking for stuff to do with professional photographers. Whether that's to hire them or to become one or how to run a business, it'll be a mixture, right? But as you dig into all that information, there will be clusters that suit them. Headshots, corporate events, um, corporate functions, award ceremonies, could be annual award giving, promotions, could be new product launches, could be so many different things, right? That people will be looking for corporate, professional, product, all these different variations. You can get found for that if the content is on the website. You can convert a visitor into a lead if the content on the website talks about their service, shows lots of examples, has some beautiful photos and videos, etc., etc. That's what has to happen. Even if we start digging into, getting a little bit more granular, one of the things that they offer on their website is corporate headshots. Now, the volume of search is not as big as professional or maybe event photographer, but people want it. So they need it for LinkedIn, or they need it for their resume, or they need it for security tags. Could be all sorts of things they need it for. And so here we can see straight away, there's different locations that it gets searched for. There's lots of different variations around the way people type it. And then there'll be even more variations either related to it or, exactly to do with that phrase. All this data can be used to then actually plan what content and how it should be presented on the website to then rebuild and have a strategy for getting found for particular services. So one of the fears that they mentioned was that they've spoken to agencies and they want lots of money, but they don't really know what they're going to do. Well, if there's a really clear plan, that agency would actually articulate exactly what they're going to change or what they're going to focus on based on the services they provide. And it's all measurable. You can see here, this data is available and it can actually be measured on the website too. Why is all this stuff important? Well, I just did a quick event photographer search myself. And, here's one of the companies. I have no idea if they're any good, don't know who they are. This video with the text popping up doesn't make sense. It's not a good execution, but you got movement, you got visuals, you've got something that draws you in really quickly. Can see logo straight away. I don't have to read a list like on the other website. I can see beautiful examples of headshots. There's a celebrity in there as well, so there's some recognition. There's another recognizable person. So, and again, here we've got some really beautiful visuals, lots of different photos. So here I'm using the photographer's hat as well because I'm looking at these as different composition, different styles, different types of locations. There's a lot of variety. So within a couple of seconds, I get that feeling that they could do it. If I had a corporate event, trade show, branding photography, or movie launch in that example, public speaker, product launch, they could do it. And I can see all those examples within a couple of seconds without clicking anything else. There's another one. This ranked as well, so this came up in my search. It's a very busy homepage. They've written lots and lots of text. It's obviously been done to rank. But the visuals here, again, comparing to what was here, this looks like to me it's from one event, whereas this looks like lots of different things. And this can be one of the things that converts. This one doesn't make sense, but the rest do. This is one of the things that can convert a customer from a visitor to a lead. And so, we look at another example, Chicago. So they've set up this site. You can see they've written all this text just to rank in Chicago for brand photography or corporate photography. There's some examples. Again, they're all different. So the user experience for this website's not ideal. They've obviously loaded it up heavily with text at the bottom. These samples load up actually quite slowly when you switch between services, so it's not ideal. It should be a lot faster. So see how it's, but at least there's a lot of variation in what they're displaying. And the way they've ranked this site is obviously with a lot of content. So you can argue and say for humans it's not that exciting, but for the search robots it is. If we change tax, so I just did a generic search in America for these things. If we look at corporate event photographer in Florida, Google doesn't show up by default, but if you click tools, you can see how many potential results there are. So this is a mixed bag of information websites, news websites, businesses, whatever. It's anything that Google thinks is related to that topic. There's nearly 700 million potential results. That's how competitive it is. And so what we see straight away is ads. And one of the things they mentioned was ads didn't work for them. Ads wouldn't have worked for them, I think, primarily because of the way the website is presented. So that's most likely why they didn't work. But this is how saturated it is. The first 4 placings are ads before you get into the organic. When you get into the organic, again, lots of competitors, and they don't show up. They don't show up in organic, so there's no content on their site, and they don't show up in maps because it doesn't look like they've got a profile. So they're basically invisible. Nobody knows they exist, except for people that have used them before, or if their existing customers refer them. And so that limits how much business you can do because you're not reaching a new audience. And they said they want to get business in LA, in Washington, in Las Vegas, etc., etc. So that's across the country. So in each state, there'll be different group of competitors. So in theory, they could be competing with like thousands of businesses. And without the right setup on the website, without the right content, without things that are unique, it'll make it really difficult to do. If we look at then some of the companies locally, so locally in Florida, look at one like this, for example, which is, again, I don't know who they are, but I just look at how they're presented. The corporate, straight away, happy photo, nice and engaging, lots of brands, again, lots of different variations from events. And they're all quite different. They're all different colors, styles, creativity, white backgrounds, speaker, etc. So straight away, again, I don't have to look much further. I can tell that they're good at doing it, right? Even the headshots will do the same comparison. Standard staff photo, and then a variation again. White backgrounds, in situation, a little bit more sort of fashion orientated. There's a mixed bag. So would I be comfortable hiring them to do headshot photography? Absolutely. Do I need to read anything else? No. There's some great samples there. If I go back to this site, there's no headshot photos, even though it's mentioned in the text. So you're making people work hard to figure out what you do or don't do, even if they did land on the website, right? And you don't want to have that. Here's another business. The execution here, I would debate whether it's good or not because they've got their name up here, but it's mixed into the background photo. There's so much text in this background photo. Visually, where do you look? Plus, they've got a saying here, then they've got more text here. There's no rest in between all this text. It's like, where do you look? But visually, again, you can see there's lots of different examples, and they ranked. The other simple thing was, very simple service definition. So I know where to go straight away to find maybe the thing that I was looking for. And again, they're showing reviews, so at least they're showcasing a lot of the basic things. Why is all this important? Well, apart from the fact there's so much more competition these days, Google, these are all the updates they've made to their algorithm just in the last 4 years. And if we go back further, there's even more. So the world is changing, there's more competitors, and Google keeps changing the platform that you're trying to get found on. So you can't have a website that's 10 years old. It probably won't work unless you've got some other activities that are getting lots of people to visit and look at that website. There's no way you're going to find more leads. It's just impossible. And so one of the more important updates last year was around September, which is the content update. And there's been a few tweaks since then as well. And it's a massive focus on content, things that help people. So Somebody might be wanting to know, what's the best pose for a corporate headshot. That could be content on the website, and on their website, they could show 3 or 4 different examples of someone sitting at slightly different angles, or standing versus sitting, or indoors versus outdoors. There's lots of different ways to do it. One of the other big areas that they could have content around is, photos to do with particular venues, and it could be because of their lighting, or because of the space, or the shape of a venue. Could be lots of different ways you do it. But they don't have any of that at the moment, so they've got no chance. And the challenge is Google are constantly making updates to the way its platform works, and so even if you build something a couple of years ago, you need to make adjustments to potentially keep up. The other thing to remember is your competitors might be making changes. So if they improve what they do, there's even less chance you'll show up if they do it better than you do. And that's why some of these other businesses who may not have been around for 10 years show up now, because they've done some of those things. How can you find out about all this stuff? Well, believe it or not, Google gives people all this information. So there was an update in August. You can read all about it. It's on their blog. You can read through, what are the areas that they focused on, and what are the things that they decided to change. And then you have to figure out, obviously, whether that's relevant to what you're doing, and the things you have on your website, etc. But all of this is readily available. And so when somebody questions what's an agency going to do, or what's a freelancer going to do, or what's the ongoing work somebody's going to do, well, part of it will be based around the strategies you have to grow in certain services or whatever. And another chunk of the work will be to make sure that if there is an update like this, are there any changes to what's performing on your site, or what you rank for, etc. Now, somebody might say, well, how do you know about all this stuff? How would you even know if it changes? Well, Google gives you free tools. This is free. This is Google Search Console. And this is my website. This is my photography website. So many years ago, it was a different domain. And I changed it because I wanted it to be more generic and add other services. I never ended up doing that. But as it stands right now, one of the things that I continued to focus on was car photography, because it's a passion. Guess what? I get traffic for it, as well as parties, because that was the other big thing that I focused on. Google can give you the information about what you do or don't rank for with a click of a button. So I'm choosing Australia, and now I can see that in the last 3 months I had 30 something clicks to do with car photography, so 30 odd people visiting my website to look at my car photography services from Google. Now, some of these people might have been in other states, so that's not much use to me, but majority of them were a good portion of them, were in Sydney, which is ideal. And so in Sydney, I'm averaging about position 2, give or take. So that means I've got a regular flow of potential leads coming through, and I don't have to advertise. Now, in the case of this other photographer, if their focus is corporate events and things like that, then the work that has to get done is to create content based around corporate events, and then in here to track corporate event photography, or event photographer, or professional event photographer, something like that. There'll be a whole range of words that would eventually appear here if the work is done correctly. And you can track and measure this. So if you actually do pay somebody to do ongoing work, you can measure the progress that they're making. And so in their case, they were based in Florida, maybe they're based in a particular town. You would start with measuring whether they're getting found for that particular town, then the state, and then obviously broaden out from there. And you would see this in the listing. So for me, for example, I didn't optimize my site to get found in Melbourne or Brisbane, so therefore I'm not worried that that doesn't come up. But if I did want to, I would be looking to see if car photography Brisbane, was increasing, and if my rankings were improving, etc. And so that's how transparent it can be. There's data from third-party tools. There's actually data from Google itself. So if you go into Google Ad Planner, which is part of the Google Ads ecosystem, they will give you data as well. And then you can actually measure what's happening with your own site. You can even see things like how many pages are actually indexed. Things like this are important too, because here on their website, let's pretend this is their main service page. The content here is so thin and so generic, and it also does not have any optimizations, not even a H1 title, which is the most basic thing you need to have. There should be professional photographer should be the heading, right? As a simple thing. That's not even there. So without access to their search console, I can tell you for a fact their site probably doesn't even get indexed. And here you can see there's even some of the pages on my own website are not indexed. Now some of them don't matter because they're pages that just show some sample photos or whatever. But the most important ones are, for example, the car page. And so you can very quickly see, what is or isn't working. You can see how quick I'm moving around from one thing to the other. I can now see that in the last 3 months, my car photography page has pulled in 60 people from search, and I've averaged across Australia, so it's 8. You'd want to be higher, but I don't service the rest of Australia. But for different phrases, I'm in the top, 3 or 4, give or take, which is good. And this page gets recognized or found for, we're still scrolling, 150 odd different phrases. Now, if I wanted to, I could go look through all of this and go and update the page and put some more of the information to do with these different phrases, and it'll probably increase even more. Okay, but right now it's not a priority. But that's how it would work, and that's the very simple explanation of what somebody would do for ongoing work once a new site was built. So their fear was not understanding what was going to be done, what it would achieve, etc. But the reality is there's a whole heap of data and information available that can be looked at to keep anybody honest around the work that's getting done. Next question then would be, well, how the hell do you do it? Like, what do you do to set it up? So if we go to the back end of my website, so this is the photography website. So this hasn't been updated for a long time. It's not a focus of mine, the consulting is. And so here, car photographer page, straight away we can see this is the stuff that would appear if somebody was searching. So the idea here is that these prompt someone to click, or hopefully it's attractive enough for someone to want to do that. And then when they go onto the page and the content have to be set up a certain way to get found for that keyword, or in this case for this service. And so here, no surprise, car photographer in Sydney. The photo behind is probably named professional photo of a car in Sydney. There's a supporting headline of hire a car photographer, so it kind of relates to the main one. The copy or relates. All these photos, they're all pretty much named professional photo or car photo or something of that nature. There's a wide variation. Maybe that confuses some people, but I'm obviously trying to show off my work. People I know mainly want photos of their car to sell it. Therefore, that's what that copy is for. There are some people that take photos because they've got a collectible car. That's what that's for. This is an add-on service to use it as a car photo shoot. So it's a bit of a tangent. Doesn't really relate to the service, but it's there. I know people love putting their cars on posters and things. People want to know pricing and what's included. They want to know what packages there are. They want to have choices as well, right? And so there's different ones here. Some of what this does is not only give Google an indication that this is a service that has pricing, there are options. It's a transactional thing. It's not an information thing. So somebody that would be looking for how to take a photo of a car, I wouldn't rank for it, and that's fine. I don't need those people coming to my website. I need the people that want a car photo shoot. And so all of this makes it really clear to Google what the intent of the page is. The other benefit, and some of you as a photographer or even as a business owner might be thinking, oh, it's not good to put pricing. Well, there's a lot of people that want to see it because maybe your starting prices are beyond their budget. Maybe sometimes you convince them, but for me, I've put it on mine because it helps rank the page, and secondly, it filters out people that are not prepared to spend that money. Some people might only want to pay $50 for photos. Well, unfortunately, that's not something I'm prepared to do. Very clear call to actions, and then some more samples. These are individual blog posts from other jobs. Now, these blog posts have all been written specifically to try and pick up different keywords for variations around car photography. So there's a motorsport one, there's a classic car one, There's SUV four-wheel drives, because obviously a lot of people have got them, and obviously the classic car. Again, all of that content helps the main page. On the live version, so this is the back end. On the live version, the reviews I receive for car photography show up here. So again, helps content on the page. And then lastly, I've added all these FAQs, and this has got a special markup to tell Google that these are answers to FAQs. Again, this helps provide context to what the page is about. And these are all the common questions that people ask when they're taking car photos. So if you compare this to what we looked at before in terms of a service page, hopefully you can see why this ranks compared to maybe theirs that doesn't. And a lot of this is to do with the content. Now, my original photography site had individual pages for weddings, baptism, christenings, birthday parties, engagement parties, 40th birthday parties. It was all individual niches. And then the sample photos matched the service, or the copy matched what people wanted for those types of services. So cake cutting, multiple locations, depends what it was. And so I would used to rank for that, and I would get a lot of inquiries for all those different individual services. I didn't try and compete for just being a photographer, because at the end of the day, there's thousands of those, but there was less people focusing on individual niche services, which is what I wanted to do. And so that helped me create a business that was very sustainable. It had a regular flow of leads, and I didn't have to spend any money on advertising. In fact, I didn't spend any. It was not a cent on any ads. I basically got found locally using a really strong Google My Business profile, over 200 reviews, and then really good content, and then photos to back it up. And so what it meant was my conversion rate from visitor to lead was very high. And my booking rate was very high because everybody could see everything very clearly. They could see lots of examples. They could see who I was, and it made them feel confident to make a booking. And the last aspect that they shared with me is that they received a proposal from another marketing agency. Now, this proposal, fantastic. It covers everything you need to understand about what has to happen. And so there's a really clear strategy, website design, improve SEO, improve social media, have a really clear sales funnel, then expand, beyond the basic services they offer, and obviously track performance. Perfect. I couldn't have put this any better myself. And so then they've gone in and done some research. They've looked at different trends. They've looked at competitors, just like I did. I picked different ones. I mean, it depends where you are, you'll get different results when you search for stuff. They've looked at corporate event stuff in New York. They've shared some data. It's the same data I was talking about before, just from a different provider. This is a little bit more specific to New York. And here, what it's showing is there's 80 odd variations to do with corporate event stuff in New York. And there's a volume of 4, 5, 6, 7,000, 12. So, we're talking about 1,500 odd searches a month just for a corporate event in New York. Now, they don't have any content on the site to even rank for that in New York, so there's a gap straight away. A little bit of talk about doing ads and so forth. Some traditional SWOT. More research, which is good. But here, this is some things to take note of, is that these guys probably optimized, or they're based in Los Angeles potentially, but they maybe optimize this as a location page to get found there, but also get found in other places. And they might have multiple pages for all that sort of stuff. Another competitor. And so what this person's tried to do is to say, hey, this is what's happening in the market. Here's some competitors. Here's some research to even prove that people are looking for this stuff. And that's why you have to make a change. So they're saying the same thing I'm saying. But they didn't feel that this proposal was good enough, because at the end it asked for some big money to make some changes. They did some research on ads. Suggested some different people to target. Makes sense. These are the people that are involved in those type of events. And all of this goes together to then create a strategy, which is all about, and they mention it here, to get content created so they get found for the service they want to sell. It's that simple. And that's the process you have to follow. And so as we keep going through this, one of the big things they suggested was this structure for the website. Perfect. I don't think I would have come up with anything different. personal preference, maybe the About Us on the left, maybe a separate one for headshots, but this is pretty common. This is what people expect. And within each of these, there would be content related specifically to that subservice or that niche within what they do. Here, absolutely, these are the fundamentals you have to have. And so what they've gone through is to then explain all the different types of photography they have to showcase, all the different niches. They've offered that they would do a lot of technical and on-page, off-page SEO stuff, which could be a lot of gobbledygook for people to understand it. But at the end of the day, what they're saying is the website has to get updated, your Google My Business profile has to get updated, and here, I mean, I wouldn't call this an SEO strategy, but it's better than nothing. They've taken data from Google Ad Planner. So here, straight away, we don't see the location. I'm assuming it's US. Convention photography, convention event photography. Just there's 700 people a month looking for that in the US. And this is based on advertising. So they're saying it's low competition for advertising. That could be a good way to generate leads if the content on the website is made. But in terms of search, if we search this in Google, there's probably 100 companies offering this. So it's competitive on search. It's probably low competition on ads. But here, straight away, again, you can see this is real data from Google saying there's, whatever, if we add this up, I don't know, there's like 2,000 odd searches or something. So, there's heaps of opportunity. They go on to talk about a funnel, super important. At the end of the day, it's basics. How many people are coming to find you? Where from? Like what? Billboard, magazine ad, newspaper ad, website. Maybe you go to a convention organizer conference and you've got a booth there or something. You have to figure out how big this funnel is. How many people discover your business? Is it 2 or is it 2,000? Then out of all of that, what pages they're going to. If it's someone that wants a Las Vegas photographer, then you have to have a page for that. If it's someone that wants something very specific for a keynote speaker, you need to have content for that. If you don't have it, you probably won't convert them. And that's what it's talking about here. It's talking about taking all that traffic, giving it to the right page or the right intent or the right service the person wants, and then turning to a lead, because they can see reviews, they can see great examples, they can see the people behind the business, and that's how you end up selling. It's just as simple as that. And so what they're talking about here is getting cold traffic, brand new customers that have never ever seen this business before. Now, the only way to do that is either to run ads, go do traditional promotions, or invest in your website. It's really simple. Traditional would be, flyers in local offices, pay for advertising on maybe event organizer websites, maybe even pay for a mail out that goes to a venue's database or something. Could be all those other ways. But at the end of the day, you have to invest. Now, a lot of those things are short term. You'll do them maybe once, or you do them 3 or 4 times in a given period, but that's it. You've got to keep paying if you keep wanting to do it. The benefit of doing SEO for your website, if you get it working and it continues to work, it's a medium to long-term strategy, and you continually get found for it. And that's the value of this work. And so, as you go through, this is all the stuff to do with the sales funnel. Building a database makes sense. Like, you should be regularly reaching out to people that have used you before. And so here they talk about what they're going to do, which is redesign the website, which I would have done as well. Implement SEO, 100% agree. And then start looking at funnels and automation, which is kind of later. You've got to get the fundamentals right first. And they weren't prepared to spend $4,200 doing this. The thing is, if they don't do anything, nothing's going to change. Or if they want to get volume of people discovering their business, they're going to have to invest something to do that. So one way or the other, you have to invest. The benefit of updating a website is if it's done well enough, you'll convert more customers into leads. 2 or 3 jobs could probably pay for the website. And that's the gamble. So by not doing it, they're kind of stuck, because then you have to resort to more traditional things. There was an SEO offer, makes sense. Like either all the work's going to get done up front, or the foundation stuff will get done up front, and then it'll get added to over time, right? And so again, depends on budget and time and all the rest of it. But this makes sense. This is very common. The sales flow stuff makes sense. There's nothing in here because what they've done is focus on the fundamentals. These two things have to get done first. If you don't do these, nothing will really change. So if we come back to the original, the original thing, husband and wife business, they want to do corporate events, 20 years operating, they don't want to change their website, there's no flow of leads, they're more expensive than competitors, and they include lots of stuff. But the thing is, nobody knows it. And even if you did go to the website, it's hard to digest and decipher. And that's why their business is not growing. It's as simple as that. And so unless you make wholesale changes to what they're doing and change the mindset around not being interested in changing the website, there's no way you're going to compete. There's just simply too much competition within their own town, let alone the state and then other states, to sit there and continue with what they have. And that's why it's not working.